so much for having me here. I would like to start with a brief meditation to bring us into the presence. And yes, we are a radiant light of God. And so if we could close our outer eyes and just feel the radiance of the sun pouring into this room, the radiance of love from each and every single one of us, filling this room. If we can settle ourselves into the peace of this room, we recognize that we are in the presence of the presence, that we are the beloved of the beloved. And that is not just in this room, but it is everywhere we go. For wherever we go, God is. God is that radiant, indwelling presence. And as we are here, as spirit, having a human experience, we lift up our human experience to spirit. We are not here to be more spirit-like, for we are always that. We are here to be that human expression as beautiful spirit. And so we will take a couple of counts of silence, each one saying into their heart, speaking into that heart, what Spirit would have them say. Then we will open up to our Sunday celebration. And so it is. Ashe. Amen. Okay. So, here we are, a new year. And my talk is inspired by this book by James Clear on atomic habits. He chose atomic because it is the smallest fraction of anything in the universe. And by making changes at the smallest possible level, we have atomic power for good. But we are here to become the creative spirit, the God creation that we are intended to be. It is human nature. That's why we're always growing and evolving and exploring and questioning. And there's always that little voice that says that we are not good enough. But I want to play that backwards and kick it off and have the little voice that says, you are this and so much more, beloved. That's the switch that we are here to make. The next slide, please. So this is New Year's, and everyone starts with resolutions. How many of you have made resolutions? Yes. All right. And so there is this woman, her name is Sally. Sally just turned 67 years old, and she has been making resolutions ever since she can remember. She has resolved to be thinner. She has resolved every new year to live in a nicer home. It didn't have to be anything grand, but it has to be beautiful, and it has to be, just have a nice energy and vitality to it, and it has to be sufficient for her. And she has resolved to find that perfect relationship. And so here she is at this time, this 66th first of the year, and those things have not come to pass. She is living in the trailer home with her cat, Felix. And she has some questions about whether she should resolve these things again, but they are who she is. She feels the need to do this. And so she read someplace that extra things in your home carry energy, so she decided to purge and to cleanse and to start the new year right. So she just went through the storage, and she found a copper tea kettle. And so she decided she would polish it and take it to the thrift store. So she's doing that, and a genie pops out. And the genie says, "Thank you, you have released me, and you have 3 wishes." And she says, "I don't have to do any more resolutions?" "No, you have 3 wishes." And she says, "I wish I was young again, and I wish I was beautiful, and I wish I was thin, and I wish I was fit and healthy, and all those things that I felt I was, but you couldn't see it from the outside." And poof! The genie turns her into this beautiful young woman. And the genie says, "And you have 2 more wishes." And she says, "Well, I'm grateful for my trailer home, but I want to have a nice cottage with a picket fence and a place where I can grow a garden and a place that's quiet. I don't have to hear all this from my neighbors, and a safe place for my car and a nice kitchen and an herb garden. And I just want to feel safe in my own home." And poof, this happens. And she's in this beautiful small cottage with bookshelves and just really beautiful pillows and the divan and just sun is coming in, and she's just, "Oh, thank you." And the genie says, "And you have yet 1 more." And she says, "Well, there's the relationship. And I'd love to be in a good relationship and start over." But she looks at her cat, Felix, and she says, "He has always been my only companion. He sleeps with me, he purrs, he's there, I can talk to him. Why don't you make Felix into the man of my dreams?" So, poof, Felix is this young, tall, handsome, enigmatic man with just the most beautiful, piercing green eyes. And she's looking at Felix, and he just ready to swoon, and Felix says, "I bet now you wish you hadn't had me neutered." So, you see, even with the genie, the New Year's resolutions are missing the big mark, which is, who are you really? And how do you resurrect that from the depths of you into the full manifestation of your life? Our next one, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about resolutions, and I'm sure all of those things, sound very, very familiar. Drink less, find love, enjoy life, help others, join a gym, lose weight, and so on. But if we could have the next slide, and I'm sure that most of us already know this deep in our hearts without the numbers, more than 38% of adults set resolutions every year. Only 9% of people keep them, all right? And many falter, with 23% giving up within the first week and 36% making it past the first month. So today being the 12th, where are we? Now let's go to the next one. So here we come to this book about tiny changes. And the way in which I've modified this is the spirituality of it. The Bible in Zechariah 4:10 says, "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." Well, who is the Lord? It is not some anthropomorphic being up there that says, "Goody, goody, you're doing it." Yes, yes. The Lord is our higher self. It is that inner glowing part of us that says, "Yes, you took that first step." And so, to that extent, that is the Lord, the inner self, the higher self, the spirit within us, that rejoices in the smallest steps that we take, because it brings us closer to Source and to who and whose we are. Next, please. So why do habits matter? Because we are a part of a divine tapestry. We do all believe that everything happens for a purpose. We say this. Each one of us has a purpose. We are not here by accident. And then we look at the world, okay? And it does not look in many ways like a divine tapestry. Well, why is that? Because if we look at ourselves as an individual magical thread in the divine tapestry, and we veer off our inherent pattern, then what we create is together as a humanity is not that. But it is something that looks like maybe what we're seeing on the news. And we can sit there and we can shake our heads and say, all of those unruly divine threads, look at the mess they've made. But we can't help them. It starts here. And so when we talk about the atomic habits, the small changes in becoming, we each affect one another in this divine tapestry. It starts with us. And the rest follows. So that's why our habits, our alignment with our higher self and our divine purpose is so important. Because if we can do it and if we can be that light, then we can shine that onto others. And then it just becomes a pattern of a divine tapestry, which we like to call a world that works for all. Next, please. So here are some ideas about what we can do. Collectively, create a more just and compassionate society by believing in our ability to affect change through. This is what we're doing. But it's individually. We can't wait for the rest of the world to come to a new thought church community, to Unity or Centers for Spiritual Living or Emerson, and then everything will be better. It's the individual in whatever church, even if there is no church, on whatever path they're on. Because then we can start to shape social understanding that comes through compassion, that moves through the visions. We can empower positive changes in others, even the smallest change. We can advocate for social justice because we know of the oneness of each and every single one of us. We can foster inclusivity and compassion when we stop being in judgment about the stray threads that are not following the divine tapestry pattern. And we have to understand that we're just not here for ourselves. Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith said, "You are not put on this planet to consume. You are put on this planet to contribute." Next, please. So there's a concept here. The smallest habits, when repeated consistently, will lead to results. The problem with making resolutions is that you're saying that whatever you are today, tomorrow you'll be something else. It took you a long time to be who you are today, whatever our ages are. That can't be undone overnight. And then we bring spiritual integration, the growth, from these daily practices. What is mine to be? What is mine to do? You look at a situation, and then we apply it. So we can maybe take a few minutes of daily prayer and meditation. James Clear talks about having a little note by his coffee maker when he gets his morning coffee to meditate for 1 minute. Well, I don't even know how you can get into the zone in 1 minute, but you know the thing, if you start with 1 minute and you like it, then you'll go longer if you want to. But if you say to yourself, you cannot have this cup of coffee until you've sat at least 10, 15 minutes, you may not do it, you see? So that's the beauty of starting with very small habits. Next, please. So what do we do with spiritual integration? It takes the unity principle that thoughts held in mind produce after their like kind. So we keep in mind who we want to become. And then we create the life that we would want. I say to myself, what would a healthy person do when I'm having an argument with myself about going to the gym or not? You know, I don't say to myself, you promised you would lose weight, and we know that when you're out of the Spanx, you don't look that fit. I just say, what would a healthy person do? Because I want to be that vibrant expression of the divine, right? I'm just finishing ministerial school. I can't afford to just keel over now. What would that all be for, right? So what would a healthy person do? Thoughts lead to actions. Actions lead to habits. And habits lead to a way of life. From James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. So what is a thought? It's a tiny little bleep, bleep, that you attach an identity to, a divine identity. And then we are all influencers. Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich. Interesting about this quote, I thought to myself, we're all influencers. This is why, as an expression of the divine, we have to remember not just the difference it makes in our lives, but the difference it makes in the whole world. And I thought to myself, surely somebody else must have said that before. And I looked it up, and Napoleon Hill said it. And if you know, this was like in the early 1900s, so these are not new ideas. Next. Identity-based habits. We talked about this a little bit. What would a healthy person do? If you want to be a person that has learned something new, let's say that you want to become a minister. Well, what would a minister study? Let's say you want to become you want to learn how to crochet. Well, if you wanted to learn how to crochet, what would that person do? If you wanted to be involved in foster activities with pets, well, what would that person do? Maybe you would go and volunteer at the shelter. So you plan your activities in keeping with the image, your mind's image of the person that you would want to be. That lady that's drinking the water, she probably would like some pizza. I often would like some pizza, but it's, well, what would a healthy person do? They wouldn't probably have pizza like that and sodas. Next, please. So how do we spiritually integrate these principles? Aligning our habits with our divine identity, and maybe spend some time in meditation saying, who and what is my higher self? Connect with that. Have conversations with it. Journal about it. Get to know who that is. Because then you, as you change your habits at the smallest level, are going to be changing your habits to come into alignment with that integration of your human self and your higher spiritual being. Not what I would want for you, not what your spouse or your boss or your kids or whoever else would want for you. What would your higher self want for you? How do you integrate that? Because any kind of conflict or strife comes from separation. And it's inner separation. It starts in here. So that alignment is going to bring you peace. And it's going to bring you into that which you were meant to be. And then application, seeing ourselves as that expression, embodying the qualities of love, peace, and wisdom in our daily actions. If we can remember love, peace, and wisdom, and before we're about to say something to the person pulling out of the parking space, even though our windows might be raised, if that's who you are here to be, then that thought doesn't belong. Because in our human expression, that is the reality of who we are. We have tempers. We get annoyed. We're running late. People don't listen to us. Things are not working out. So it's really easy to want to speak and even sometimes act that out. But if that's what's running in our minds, then that takes over. And you can say, just like you flick off the monkey that tells you you're not good enough. It's like, nah, let them go. God bless them. And so it's interesting that I have that affirmation up there. Thank you for your song, because I see the divine parallels. Let us repeat together. I am a radiant expression of divine love and wisdom. Next, please. So there's 4 laws of behavioral change. The first one, you make it obvious. You have clear cues for your habits. For example, buy your coffee, the affirmation about meditation. Walking your dog, your walking shoes next to the leash. You're going to go. You place things as visual reminders. You can put books with affirmations. Even if it's in a bathroom, if you're going to be there for a while, you might as well use that time wisely, you know. It just put things in places where you're going to be that are going to remind you of it. And make it attractive. So, for example, you might, next to the refrigerator, have some Entenmann's cheesecake. But you really would want to, you see yourself as a healthy person. Move that someplace else and put a bowl of fruit there. Or have some sliced, veggies with dip or cubed up cheeses. Make it attractive and move the other stuff away. Also, use a system of rewards rewards for yourself. So, let's say that I don't feel like doing the dishes, but I really, really, really want to go and see a movie, or I want to go for a long walk. I'm going to tell myself, I'm going to go see that movie, or I'm going to go for that long walk after I do the dishes. So we layer our habits. Do the things that you would rather not do that we know need to be done. We all have those, right? And say, when I'm done with that, then I'll go do that fun thing. As opposed to going and doing that fun thing, and then you come home and then you feel badly because you said you would do this and you didn't do it. And spiritual integration, again, combining these spiritual practices with activities. Put uplifting music around when you're doing the things that maybe you don't like to do around your house. I am a fan of Abraham Hicks. So if I am doing some housework or folding laundry or whatever, which I detest folding laundry, I will play something like that on my phone, and it'll make the time go like nothing. And I've learned something, and I come out of it with folded laundry and a much better attitude. So you can integrate these things in your daily activities. The next one, please. And make it easy. As I said, the little reminders, simple practices. Put what you want to eat out in the forefront. It talks in the book about people put their supplements out on the counter. And I always thought only old people lay out all their supplements on the kitchen counter. And I really didn't want to, it's like, looks unattractive. But I realized I so frequently, my husband and I forget to take them. And so we'll have them in baskets and different things. Heck with that. Put them all out there. Take your supplements. Maybe if you have guests, put them in some other container. Make it easy, okay? And reward yourself. For example, there are apps for how you can save even pennies. And then when you get to that point, if you happen to be a spendaholic, which is another one of my character defects, and I'm really working on that. When you've saved so much, reward yourself. Take a painting class, take a workshop, go to the retreat in Prescott. Do something like that. Use the little apps to track your savings. on things that you can't even remember what you bought. How many of us get our credit card bill at the end of the month, thinking, what was that for, And you have maybe $3 or $4, $50 to $100. What were those for? Well, what could you do with that? What could you do with that would be different? And then reflect on the positive feelings and your spiritual growth that come from these consistent practices. I don't know about you, but when I feel like I've done what I should have done, and I'm the best version of myself, man, I'm like so happy. And I don't want to go back to my old self. But if I don't continue to do that, then I forget what this feels like, and the slip sliding back to your old self. So that's why we got to keep doing it and journal those positive feelings and then reread them to yourself. When you find yourself at a down moment, a time of challenge, read your own love notes to yourself about how good it felt. The next slide, please. So there's always disappointments. It's always a waltz, 2 steps forward, 1 back. We have to have patience. So this does not happen overnight. And the problem is that most of us get really discouraged during those times when things don't go as we would expect. The parable of the persistent widow is a story about a widow in the Bible that had been dealt with unjustly. And she kept going to this judge who was not a just judge, and he was full of himself and power and wouldn't hear her, and wouldn't hear her, and wouldn't hear her. And she kept going and asking and asking and asking until she finally wore him down, and he heard her, and she was restored to where she should have been restored to. Now, had she given up and said, this judge is a crook. Most judges are crooks. Everybody in the world is a crook. I'm screwed because everybody treats me in this way. But it's persist. And what caused her to persist? I don't think that it was a streak of some mental disorder. It was the faith that righteousness prevails. And she knew that. And she knew who she was. And she had that faith. Can you imagine what she might have put in her diary? And the next time somebody said no to her incorrectly, she might have read that and said, I'm coming after you. Next, please. Charles Fillmore, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, one of my favorites. It's always on my desk. He says, the widow represents the soul or the subconscious mind that is seeking justice and the right outcome. Her persistence symbolizes the continuous, unwavering faith and determination required to manifest our desires and align with divine law. Charles Fillmore, in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, 100 years ago. The unjust judge symbolizes the human mind and the ego that is often identified with spiritual truths and divine justice. When we say that light prevails over darkness, justice, it doesn't seem like that sometimes, but remember this parable, it takes time, always prevails. For all there is God, and God always prevails. Next. The judge's eventual decision to grant the widow's request illustrates that even the most resistant aspects of our consciousness can be transformed through persistent, positive affirmation and prayer. But had she given up, he would have not moved to that next level. Remember the imprint and the influence that we make on one another. We are all influencers. And persistent prayer emphasizes the importance of continuous affirmative prayer and the power of having holding a steadfast vision of justice and truth. And this aligns with our unity principle that our thoughts and our beliefs shape our reality. If we give up, what will be our reality? And how does the reality of giving up affect the divine tapestry. Next, please. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore emphasized the importance of taking action in alignment with spiritual principles and emphasized the power of visualization and confidence in action to manifest change. And I would like us to read this from him. I love this. I fairly sizzle with zeal, energy, and enthusiasm, eager to do that which ought to be done by me today. I just get the goosies just reading that, because little God bums. I fairly sizzle. We can all fairly sizzle with the truth of knowing who and whose we are. Next, please. So to summarize, small, consistent habits can lead to profound spiritual growth. Emma, this is my daughter. That's my grandson. It's not really him. It's not him. But look he sees himself that way. Choose one small habit to start this week that aligns with your spiritual goals. See yourself that way. See yourself that way, because it is the truth of who and whose we are and what we can do. You know why kids get so much that we tell them no is because they just, boy, they're like that widow. They have a vision of what they're going to get. And they see themselves that way. Next, please. By integrating this practical advice from Atomic Habits with Unity and New Thought spiritual principles, we cannot help but become the best version of our spiritually divine being. I chose the butterfly because, the caterpillar is not the cutest little thing. And as it just morphs under leaves, but the butterfly is magnificent. And what really makes a caterpillar become a butterfly is that it is free of its cocoon when its time is ready. You can't help them out. You can't help a chick out of the egg. I read it's got to peck out of the egg over 1,500 times to get out. If it doesn't do that and somebody helps it, its lungs are insufficiently developed and it will die. So I don't know when my time, everybody's time it is to morph out of the cocoon, but it is your work to do, to morph into that butterfly. And so if you would repeat with me the closing affirmation, I am empowered by the divine to create a positive and lasting change in my life and in the world. And so it is. So I would like to bring us to a moment of prayer, joyful prayer. I think prayer and smiles and laughter and all of that just go together. Oh, beloved Mother, Father, God, I am just so grateful for these insights. I am so grateful for your presence within me, within each and every single one here. Knowing that we are truly changed by these principles. We are truly morphing into our highest and best divine self, into that magnificent butterfly expression of our divinity. I just give thanks for these unity principles and for these lessons. I know that each and every single one here takes away one thing that applies to their life, that brings them closer to being that perfect expression, that magnificent thread in the divine tapestry. And for this I give great thanks. And we affirm this together by saying, and so it is. Amen. And then for the last one, if you don't mind, little infomercial here. Thursday, June 5th through June 10th, between 3 p.m. and 4:30 on Zoom, we are going to be having, with moi here and all of you, a course on atomic habits. I'm going to modify the course for this book, because there is one, to put in the spiritual principles that accompany it so that it becomes a spiritual journey to changing our habits towards becoming that which is ours to be. There will be more about this. It's going to be in a newsletter. I've brought the book. If anybody wants to take a look at it, if you want to buy it and start reading it, I think it's going to be a wonderful journey together. And I thank you so much for having me here today. Namaste.